The neon sign flickered above the small hardware store, its buzzing letters casting a dim glow over the rain-slicked sidewalk. Carter's Tools and Supplies had been a fixture on this quiet corner of Maple Street for 30 years, but tonight, it looked as tired as its owner, Frank Carter. At 62, Frank's broad shoulders were stooped, his once steady hands trembling as he locked the front door. The store was bleeding money. Customers dwindled, lured away by big-box retailers and online giants. Bills piled up on the counter, and the bank's foreclosure notice burned a hole in his desk drawer. Frank pulled his coat tighter against the autumn chill and started toward his truck. That's when he saw him, a man huddled in the alley beside the store, his thin frame wrapped in a tattered blanket. Cardboard was tucked beneath him, soaked from the drizzle. The man's face was hidden under a hood, but his cough rattled through the quiet night, sharp and painful. Frank hesitated. He'd seen homeless folks around before, especially in this part of town, but something about this guy tugged at him. Maybe it was the way he clutched a small, worn book to his chest, like it was the only thing keeping him anchored. Frank glanced at his truck, then back at the man. He should walk away. He had enough problems. But his late wife, Ellen, her voice echoed in his mind. Asterisk, you don't turn your back on someone who needs help, Frank. Asterisk. Hey, Frank called softly, stepping closer. You okay? The man flinched, pulling the blanket tighter. Slowly, he lifted his head, revealing a weathered face, maybe mid-40s, with deep lines etched around tired brown eyes. A scruffy beard framed his jaw, streaked with gray. I'm fine, he rasped, his voice rough but firm. Just resting. Frank nodded, unconvinced. It's cold out here. You got somewhere to go? The man's gaze dropped to the book in his hands. Not really. Frank rubbed the back of his neck, the weight of his own troubles pressing down. He didn't have much to offer, but he couldn't just leave the guy like this. Look, I've got a cot in the back of my store. It's not much, but it's dry. You can crash there tonight. The man's eyes narrowed, wary. Why would you do that? Frank shrugged, feeling the question sting. Because it's raining, and you look like you could use a break. After a long pause, the man nodded. Name's Marcus, he said, standing slowly, wincing as he stretched his legs. He was taller than Frank expected, lanky but strong beneath the worn clothes. Frank Carter, Frank replied, leading the way to the store's back entrance. Inside, the air smelled of sawdust and metal. Frank pointed to a small storage room with a cot, a sink, and a space heater. It's not the Hilton, but it'll do. Marcus stood in the doorway, clutching his book, a battered copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Thanks, he said quietly, like the word was unfamiliar. Frank waved it off. It's some rest. We'll talk in the morning. Morning came too soon, with gray light filtering through the store's dusty windows. Frank arrived early, half expecting Marcus to be gone. Instead, he found the cot neatly made, the storage room tidier than it had been in years. Marcus stood by the front counter, studying a display of screwdrivers like they were museum artifacts. You're up early, Frank said, setting down his coffee. Marcus turned, his expression guarded but alert. Didn't want to overstay. Thanks for the roof. Frank sipped his coffee, sizing Marcus up. He didn't know the man's story, but there was something in his eyes, a spark of resilience, maybe even pride. Frank's gaze drifted to the cluttered shelves, the unpaid bills, the empty aisles. An idea flickered, reckless but persistent. You ever work retail? He asked. Marcus raised an eyebrow. A long time ago. Why? Frank hesitated, then plunged in. I'm drowning here. Store's on its last legs. I could use an extra pair of hands, someone to stock shelves, sweep up, maybe talk to customers. It's not glamorous, and I can't pay much. But if you want a job, it's yours. Marcus stared, his fingers tightening around his book. You don't even know me. I know you're here, and you're not asking for a handout. That's enough for now. For a moment, Marcus said nothing, his jaw working as if wrestling with the offer. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll try. The first week was awkward. Marcus was quiet, efficient, but kept to himself. He organized the back room, restocked shelves, and scrubbed the floors until they gleamed. Customers noticed the change. Old-timers like Mrs. Delaney, who bought a single light bulb every month, started lingering, chatting with Marcus about gardening or the weather. He had a way of listening, really listening, that made people feel seen. Frank watched, amazed. Marcus wasn't just a worker, he was a natural. But questions gnawed at Frank. Who was this guy? Why was he on the street? Late one evening, as they closed up, Frank couldn't hold back. What's your story, Marcus? You don't strike me as someone who just ends up like this. Marcus paused, wiping down the counter. His eyes flicked to his book, always nearby. Life's not a straight line, he said finally. I had a job once, construction foreman. Good money, good crew. Then a bad accident. Broke my back. Couldn't work for a year. Meds cost more than I had. Wife left, took the kids. House went next. You try climbing back from that. Frank's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, but Marcus's tone wasn't asking for pity. Why the book? Frank asked instead, nodding at To Kill a Mockingbird. Marcus's face softened. My daughter, Lena. She loved it. Used to read it to her every night. Kept it to remember her. Frank didn't push further. He saw the pain in Marcus's eyes, the kind that mirrored his own when he thought of Ellen. Instead, he clapped Marcus on the shoulder. You're doing good here. Keep it up. Word spread about the revitalized store. Customers returned, drawn by Marcus's quiet charm and the store's renewed energy. A local blogger posted about the hidden gem on Maple Street, and foot traffic doubled. Frank paid Marcus what he could, plus meals and a small raise. Marcus moved out of the storage room into a cheap motel nearby, but he never stopped carrying that book. One afternoon, a man in a suit walked in, Tom Hargrove, a real estate developer with a shark smile. Frank knew him from the Chamber of Commerce, a vulture circling small businesses. Heard you're making a comeback, Frank, Tom said, leaning on the counter. I'm buying up this block for a new retail plaza. Name your price for the store. Frank's stomach churned. Not for sale, Tom. Tom's smile didn't falter. Think about it. You're barely scraping by. I'll give you enough to retire comfortably. Marcus, restocking nearby, overheard. After Tom left, he approached Frank. You gonna sell? Frank shook his head. This store's all I've got left of Ellen. She loved this place. I can't let it go. Marcus nodded, understanding in his silence. But the pressure mounted. Tom's offers grew, and whispers of eminent domain floated through town hall meetings. Frank's stress showed, his hands shook more, his temper flared. Marcus stayed steady, working longer hours, suggesting small changes, a loyalty discount, a community tool lending program. The store thrived, but Frank's health didn't. One night, he collapsed behind the counter, clutching his chest. Marcus called 911, staying by Frank's side until the ambulance arrived. At the hospital, the doctor was blunt. Heart attack, brought on by stress. Frank needed rest, maybe surgery. The store would have to close temporarily. Marcus sat in the waiting room, his book unopened in his lap, staring at the floor. When Frank woke, groggy from meds, Marcus was there. You scared the hell out of me, Marcus said, attempting a smile. Frank coughed, wincing. Store's done for, isn't it? Marcus leaned forward. Not if I can help it. Against the doctor's advice, Marcus reopened the store. He didn't know how to run the register or manage inventory, but he learned fast. He called every regular customer, explaining Frank's situation, asking them to spread the word. He organized Safe Carter's event, a weekend sale with coffee, donuts, and a raffle for tools. The community showed up in droves. Kids painted signs, neighbors brought food, and a local band played on the sidewalk. By Sunday night, they'd raised enough to cover Frank's medical bills and keep the store afloat for months. Frank returned a month later, frail but stubborn. He walked into a store buzzing with life, shelves stocked, customers laughing, Marcus joking with Mrs. Delaney about her roses. Frank's eyes welled up. You did this? He asked Marcus. Marcus shrugged. Folks around here love you. I just gave him a nudge. That night, Frank dug through old files and found the deed to the store. He called his lawyer, a plan forming. The next morning, he handed Marcus a document. I'm making you a partner, Frank said. Half the store's yours. Marcus froze, the papers trembling in his hands. Frank, I can't, You can, and you will. You saved this place. You saved me. Marcus's voice cracked. I was just paying you back. The story didn't end there. Marcus used his share of the profits to rent a small apartment. He tracked down his daughter, Lena, now 16, living with her mother in Ohio. With Frank's encouragement, Marcus wrote her a letter, tucked inside a new copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Weeks later, a reply came, a photo of Lena holding the book, smiling. They started talking, rebuilding what was lost. Frank, healthier now, began mentoring Marcus, teaching him the business. The store became a community hub, hosting workshops and repair clinics. Tom Hargrove's plaza deal fell through when the town rallied to protect Maple Street's small businesses. Carter's Tools and Supplies stood firm, a testament to two men who, in their darkest moments, found strength in each other. Years later, at a packed community event, Frank raised a glass to Marcus, now a confident co-owner. To second chances, Frank said, his voice thick. Marcus, holding Lena's hand in the crowd, smiled back. The store's neon sign glowed brighter than ever, a beacon of kindness in a world that desperately needed it.